So this question challenges our thinking and asks us to consider what we have learned from the pandemic so far, and of course, how we can be better organisations in the future from this learning. In summary, are we closer to our people, customers and suppliers, than we have ever been in the past? As Amy may have explained to you, if you could post your questions during our presentations, our 4 presentations, and we will do our best to answer as many as we can at the end. So Nick, over to you. Has social distancing, do you think, brought us closer together?
Okay, well, thank you, Mike, and good morning to everybody. I just wanted to give a little bit of background about Stonewater, and there's a reason for this, which will become apparent in a moment. So Stonewater is a traditional housing association, and we operate across large parts of England. We were formed by way of a merger in 2015. And one of the objectives in 2015 was to actually downsize our office footprint by 60%, which we've achieved. It was also one of our objectives was to move as much as possible to a home working, remote working environment. So we'd already started this journey 4 or 5 years ago. And we've made a significant investment in our IT. So there'd be questions, you know, I remember last year when our IT director was asking for a substantial sum of money for further infrastructure investment. And I remember saying, how much? Now, 24th of March 2020, I'm very pleased that we spent that money on our IT infrastructure investment. So we're a traditional RP, dispersed geographically, always had to work in a different sort of way because of our remoteness to many of our customers. Having said that, our core services, so our contact centre, our finance teams, our central services, were all pretty much office-based up until March of this year. So I want to share something with you, an admission which I'm embarrassed to make now actually, but on our risk register, which we spent lots of time looking at and put lots of intellectual effort into refining and making sure we covered things, we didn't have a pandemic on our register. We had loads on Brexit, loads on other things. It never entered our mind about a pandemic and the way the world would change in March of this year. So when we were locked down I think it was the 24th of March, we moved about 90% of our colleagues to home working within 24 hours. The 10% that didn't home work were people that worked in supported housing or retirement living. So we have a number of women's refuges. We have an LGBT safe space. We have a number of young persons foyers. So you can imagine having 50, 60 people in a foyer without any supervision. There would have been, well, they would have had a good time, but would have had probably all sorts of difficulties. So we had to maintain an on-site presence in our supported housing and some of our retirement living. So those colleagues have continued to work during this whole period of time. Excluding those people, everybody else in Stonewater went to virtual working within 24 hours. So what was the short-term, mid-term and long-term objectives for us? Well, looking back, our short-term objective was probably survival. And, you know, I make no bones about it. Every evening I used to listen to what the government was saying, and quite often have to then quickly change our policies or approach in response to government announcements. We've now moved away from that because being reactive has been A, not a good way to run a business, but B, wasn't a good way of delivering services and engaging with our colleagues. So we've moved away from that and we've taken a mid-term and long-term approach. The mid-term work that we did was that we wanted as a business, we felt we needed to review our vision, mission, customer offer and our values. Some of you might be thinking, why are you doing that in the middle of a pandemic? But if you're looking to see how you want to move forward as a business, you want to make sure that your vision and your mission, customer offer and your values are all what you need to move forward in the new way of working, in the new norm. So we did some work on that a couple of months ago, and we've actually, you know, I'm pleased to say that with a few minor amendments, revisions, we think that you know, all of those are fit for purpose and really good for us moving forward. So we then moved to the longer term. What's our longer term objectives? So our longer term objective is, we're a housing association. We want people to have safe, secure homes. We want them to be well maintained. We want people to be able to live their lives in the way they want to live them. But of course, what's happened since the close down, people have changed how they expect services to be delivered, how they want to live their lives. So we've now moved to what I'm calling the 3 R's. We're reimagining our business. We're making sure our business is resilient, so that we can look at things and challenges come along. And on the reimagining, we're now looking at things like artificial intelligence, chatbots, augmented reality, etc. Because a lot of our services can now be delivered remotely. And you know, we struggled for many years with, particularly in our assets side, getting good quality assets surveyors in parts of the south of England. We didn't have any problems recruiting in our Yorkshire part of the business. And now, lo and behold, because of technology, our surveyors in Yorkshire are able to look at photographs and videos emailed to them by customers and diagnose repairs and actually make sure that what needs to be done can be done quickly. We're now looking to move forward, particularly on the repair side of the business, of using augmented reality. So we can actually send people with the goggles, and then they'll have an expert at the end of the line asking them to look at certain things so we can do diagnosis. Because we did struggle with recruiting scarce resources in parts of the country. So we've really changed how we deliver our services. We're a big developing housing association, and a lot of our development people spend a lot of time going to site meetings. They've not been to a site meeting since March. We're now using drone footage of sites to see how progress is on site, having virtual meetings with the developer, with the house builder and the employers' agents, and that's working really well. Something we thought we would never be doing 7 months ago. Now we're doing it day in, day out. So are we closer? I think we are closer, actually, certainly with our colleagues. So I'll give you a couple of examples. We have a weekly managers briefing now for all managers within Stonewater, which quite often is probably about 80, 90 people. Pre-pandemic, we used to have two manager briefings a year, which meant that 80, 90 people had to drive to a central place somewhere. Some people would get there quickly, some people might take 2-3 hours, some people had to come down the day before. We now have a weekly managers meeting for 1 hour. People log in for an hour. We talk about what's going on, changes to policies, what the challenges are, have a Q&A session. People then log off and go back to work. That's saving us thousands of pounds in mileage costs, room bookings, etc. But also think of the many hours that's saving all of our managers. So instead of having a managers meeting every 6 months, they're having one once a week. We've done things like we have a monthly team talk for all of our colleagues. And that would have normally, pre-pandemic, meant all of our colleagues had to go into the nearest office to actually attend a session about, you know, what's going on in the business, what the challenges are, what are things that are happening that we've wanted to share with colleagues. We now do that remotely. We have higher levels of attendance, and it's actually, again, capped at an hour. We found our experience is an hour as long as people can really focus and keep attention, with no mileage costs, no room hire costs, etc., etc. And we're doing that monthly, and actually we think we've got better penetration of our messages and understanding to colleagues. We had organised in July of this year our annual company day, where all 800 colleagues got together in one location. Normally a racecourse, this year it was Cheltenham. That was cancelled, obviously. We saved about £100,000 in costs of the company day. That doesn't include all the travel costs, etc. We're having our virtual company day in November, which is costing a fraction of that. and we're confident we'll be able to have a day that's exciting and interesting for our colleagues, but also engaging with them. So I've talked about our colleagues. For our contractors, which are really important to us, we're now having weekly meetings with contractors. Quite often, a number of contractors on the same meeting. Again, that would have previously been a number of different meetings with people travelling to locations. So we're having far more contact with our contractors. Our customers are engaging with us virtually in ways that we didn't think were possible prior to lockdown. So we think that actually, we're closer to not only our colleagues, our customers, but also our key stakeholders like contractors, etc. The icing on the cake for me is we're in the process of organising our virtual Christmas lunch. Now, I'm not sure how that's going to look, but we always have a Christmas lunch on a certain day in December. The announcement or the headlines in the media today about bubbles of no more than 6 people in England actually helps us with that message. We'll all know on this call that why we talk about Christmas in September, but whatever you're organising, you have to organise it well in advance. So we're having our virtual Christmas lunch. I think we're sending people hampers or something, and they're going to be going into virtually with their teams to share, have a virtual lunch with them. Now, I thought that was quite, extraordinary when we started thinking about that a few weeks ago. I'm now begun to wonder with this 6 people bubble, we might be having a family virtual Christmas lunch this year. Some of my family might be quite keen about that. Some probably would be upset. But it's just a new way of thinking and thinking, about how we can move forward. For us, the new norm isn't going back to offices. We are actually very much looking to further downsize our office portfolio. As part of our merger, we actually had the foresight now of moving to all of our offices except one small one is on leasehold. So as and when those leases have break clauses, we'll be giving up those leases because they're very expensive and have no real value. We're now focusing on collaboration space and how people can work together. So for me, there's no going back. This is a new way of working. There's lots of advantages. Lots of our colleagues are really happy and enjoy the new way of working. But let's not forget those people that struggle with it, people that house share, people that want to get out of the house for whatever reason. So we do, when we're back to a more safer environment, we do need to think as a business about how we allow colleagues to have collaboration space and have that social interaction that people need. I think I've used my 10 minutes, so I'll stop there.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. That's really great. Yeah, fantastic presentation and very thought-provoking, particularly the Christmas lunch ideas that are now whizzing through my head. Yeah, I'll be very interested to know how that goes, and we will have to get our thinking caps on about that as well. So without further delay, I will hand over to Shelagh Grant, Chief Executive of the Housing Forum, to give her views on this subject.
Thank you very much, Mike, and good morning, everybody, and thank you for inviting me to join the panel. I'm thinking about the Christmas day and thinking about the virtual washing up, which won't be there to deal with, so that's perhaps something to look forward to. So if I could begin by telling you just a little bit about the Housing Forum and then expand out and tell you how the lockdown and the COVID-19 regulations are affecting our business and organisation. Well, the Housing Forum is a cross-industry organisation which represents all of the parties involved in housing development and construction, right through from clients like housing associations and local authorities, contractors and providers of services like Ian Williams, who have been a member for a very long time, suppliers and manufacturers, large household names you'll know about, Worcester Bosch, for instance, Kingspan, Polypipe, organisations of that kind, specialist consultants, architects, cost consultants and surveyors and so on. So a very broad span of membership. But as an organisation, the Housing Forum itself as a business unit is tiny. We only have 5 members of staff and not all of them are full-time. We do have a very strong association and partnership with NHBC, the National House Building Council, and for the last decade we've shared offices with them, which has had tremendous advantages in normal times, great meeting rooms and so forth, but its one downside is that it's in the City of London. So very quickly in March, the offices had to close, and particularly because of the restrictions in travelling, meetings which normally would have taken place in the heart of London had to be changed very, very quickly. So right in March, we had a consultation event set up on Friday afternoon on First Homes, and we almost overnight flipped that into a Zoom meeting. Now, we were a tiny bit ahead. It's interesting when you look back and think how these things come about. One key member of staff had given in his notice and said he was moving to the States, he was getting married and so on. We didn't want to lose his expertise immediately, so we offered him a remote working contract. So Callum was working for us for 3 months from Texas. And we therefore organised our Tuesday afternoons around a team meeting that he could participate in. The first couple of meetings, we were using old-fashioned technology, conference call and so on, and a mobile phone. And I said very quickly, we can't go on like this. We've got to find a better way of doing it. So we researched Zoom, and we were a little bit, only a week or so ahead of everybody else, but we quickly went on to Zoom. We used it for team meetings, and then we used it for a consultation meeting. And, you know, really, we've not looked back. We've continued to do that. So from the point of view of how we organise our business, we're really about setting up opportunities for people to share knowledge, to challenge issues, to find out more about topical issues. So we've done that through a programme of events. Now, switching all of that over to digital took a few weeks, but once we got going in April, we then ran a series of fortnightly webinars. And in fact, I've got one this afternoon on MMC, so that just shows you how much product we can put out that way. In terms of our home working, we didn't have a formal home working policy, but being a small organisation, we could be flexible, and we'd already had flexibility. Some individuals asked if they could work on certain days. I myself always tended to have a day at home, working, catching up, usually a Monday or Friday when business was less intense. So we haven't introduced any formal policy. We're keeping an open mind, and I think that's the best way. And I think when we look at the future of home working, it has to be as much employee driven as employer driven, because we have to find a way that works for everybody, and we have to be sensible about that. So as well as our team meetings, we're really encouraging people to do a lot of joining up by phone. Generally, it's conversations during the day, or it's keeping going after a webinar like this and just having a bit of a casual catch up and so on. I think everybody's responded very well. We said that we would put in additional requirements. It's been things really like dongles. It hasn't had to be anything more significant, but I think going forward, we will want to invest in some better laptops, some printers and so forth, and I put money in the budget to make sure that we can do that probably in 2021. One of our challenges as Housing Forum was about geography. Largely, a lot of work did take place in the southeast, and we very much wanted to have a presence in Manchester, Bristol, Leeds and so on. And we'd done that by running roundtables or seminars, maybe once a quarter. That was about as much as physically we could manage. One thing that we noticed as soon as we got onto digital was that we were attracting people from right around the country. And the most interesting thing was we'd had a commitment to a development partnership forum in Kent, which would involve a site visit around Rochester Riverside. It's going to be tremendous. It's absolutely gorgeous development, really worth seeing, and we're hoping to do that next year. But we had to substitute that with an online forum. Unfortunately, BPTW, who won the design awards around about that time, had got drone footage which had been filmed especially for the award ceremonies. So we were able to repurpose and recycle that. So it's amazing what you can do, really. And the great thing we found when we ran that, if we'd run it physically, we would have just attracted people from the southeast and Kent. But it was astonishing the number of people from around the country who took part in that because they could do it online. The other thing I would say is the number of people involved in these online events has trebled and even quadrupled. It's just the ease, the fact that you can do it remotely. It doesn't take up a whole day. It's all the things I think that Nick and others would probably say is evident in that. Our plan in 2020 was to widen our local authority membership. It's a long-held wish to do that. Difficult really to get councils to travel because really their focus is geographic on their particular area. And we've been asked about a year or so ago to help people form a network amongst local authorities so they could swap experiences, find out what was current, and also begin to understand how to be a client, how to deal with viability assessments, cost issues, all of those nitty-gritty commercial issues. And there wasn't a network to do that. Now, what's happened this year is that network has accelerated simply because we've been able to do it online. And people, say from London authorities, are very keen to find out what's going on in Manchester and vice versa. So we've been able to take more local authorities into membership and expand that network. So that's been a great opportunity for us. Looking forward, one thing I think that we do feel we want to invest in is more soft digital aids and support and so on, because the one thing that's missing is the physical networking. Online is great for reinforcing those relationships that already exist. It's more challenging to establish new ones, but this kind of opportunity is great if you're able to do that. So in order to really tackle that missing item, the missing network item, we've looked at what's available online, and Zoom certainly has conference facilities. You know, we tried that in July. It worked very well. We got groups of people together. You can't force it. You know, some people want to do that, some don't. But we actually set up 5 discussion groups that worked very well, and they all had a poll of priorities to look at and vote on. So that gave some of that kind of mixing and information sharing that was missing. When we get to our national conference on the 20th of October, we're moving into a hybrid arrangement, which will mean there'll be about maybe 20 or 30 of us in a conference centre with all social distancing measures in place and so forth. And we'll be able to do our presentations live, which I think is really important to have that feeling of being live. People will be able to take part in Zoom. But we're also investing in some new technology that enables 5 floors of discussion tables to be organised, and people can move around and sit in with other people and then hold mini Zoom conferences within that. So for me, getting around all of that is the way that we've got to go, and helping people understand it. So the great thing I think that we've learned in this period is the need to put communications absolutely first, and to be patient with communications, and to have 3 goes at everything. Sometimes you can't get people by email, so you phone them or you use Zoom, but just constantly reinforcing that and being considerate of colleagues, I think, is something that we need to do. Just before I finish, I just wanted to say over the 6 months just how much things have changed, because originally when we went into lockdown, I think the industry took a very deep breath because so many operations were on site. That was all challenged. The distribution, say, of parts and materials was affected, and people were very concerned that we might get into a confrontational, adversarial area about contractual issues on site. Now that didn't happen, and I think that's very much to the credit of the industry. It's a great industry to work in, and particularly the Housing Forum devoted to collaboration has actually seen that happen in practice. And I want to build on that. And I think for next year, what we'll be wanting to do is to look at intelligent clienting, intelligent procurement, ways in which we can build on the things that we've learned, the maturity that's come out of the sector. So that's my hope for the future. And I think I can leave it there for now. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Shelagh. Again, really interesting thoughts on this subject. And you've both raised, actually, Nick and Shelagh, the challenges of conferencing, both internal and external, and how much innovation has taken place already, and probably how much innovation will continue to take place as we're all now faced with trying to hold conferences and events in a very different world than that we used to. So yeah, no, thank you very much, Shelagh, for your thoughts. So Gareth, I think it's you're next, and so yeah, over to you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mike. Thank you for inviting us to be part of this discussion. Bringing people together is very much what the retirement community sector is all about, so it's a really topical discussion for us. Just to introduce myself, my name is Gareth Lyon. I'm the Head of Policy and Communications at ARCO, the Associated Retirement Community Operators, which is the body representing and setting standards for the housing with care sector in the UK. We support more than 30 not-for-profit and private organisations who develop and operate high-quality retirement communities. These communities are distinct from both care homes and retirement housing, combining self-contained homes for sale or shared ownership or rent with 24-hour on-site staffing, CQC-registered domiciliary care, and a wide range of communal facilities. And that is one of the key points we're coming back to later about how some of the challenges our members have faced during the lockdown and their desire to keep bringing people together. So I'm going to mostly be talking about our members because that's what our job is as a membership body, but I'll include some reflections about how things have been for us as a team at ARCO as well. Just about retirement communities, as well as boosting the physical and mental health of their residents and creating big cost savings for the NHS and for social care and freeing up housing for all generations by encouraging older people to downsize. Retirement communities play a key role in tackling social isolation and loneliness, rather than being, as they were potentially characterised in the past, as sort of grey ghettos detached from the local community. One of the distinctive features of retirement communities is they're often located on or next to the high street and bring different generations together through shared spaces and activities, helping to strengthen social connection. Residents in retirement communities are 5 times as likely as non-residents to participate in social events and 4 times as likely to meet up with friends. Only 1% of them say they feel isolated, which is about 30 times lower than the corresponding figure for people of their age group. Strengthening the social connections of older people is crucial, as recent evidence has demonstrated that high levels of social isolation and loneliness experienced by this group. According to the Campaign to End Loneliness, there are 4 million lonely older people in the UK. Over half of over 75s live on their own, and 500,000 older people go 5 or 6 days a week without seeing or speaking to anyone at all. Our members therefore place great value on their work to create friendships and connections across retirement community residents and between residents and the wider community. Due to the need to adhere to the government's guidance and rules around social distancing and reducing social contact to a minimum, retirement communities have had to take steps to restrict the use of communal facilities, which they usually provide, and have had to cancel many of the social and connection events that they've been running. These include having to restrict and for a time close their restaurants, cafes and gyms, which in normal times are a real hub for the public, as well as looking at various other facilities which have had to be closed for a while, such as cinemas, swimming pools, and even some of their outdoor spaces. While the outdoor open spaces would appear to have the same status as parks and therefore should have been able to remain open, there have been some legal difficulties that our members have faced in terms of how they've been classified. And definitely when they've been allowed to reopen them, there's been huge pent-up demand. So it's been great to see them being back in use in recent months. An example of a retirement community which in normal times helps to tackle social isolation amongst older people through shared spaces and activities, but which had to restrict use of these to prevent the spread of COVID-19 is the Chocolate Quarter in Keynsham, run by our not-for-profit member St Monica Trust. It's located on the site of an old chocolate factory. It's probably best not to mention the name of the old manufacturer there. It previously served as the heart of the community and its major employer. And since St Monica took over the site, they've really brought it back into that role as being a hub of the community, with its bar, cafes, leisure facilities acting as a hub for the whole town. The Chocolate Quarter includes 136 supported living units, a 93-bed care home, office space, a swimming pool, pottery, dance studio, a cinema, restaurant and bar, all accessible to local people and designed to appeal to all ages. The COVID-19 outbreak has forced the St Monica Trust into a difficult decision to close some of these facilities for a time or to restrict their use to residents to protect the older people living there from infection, if I may. While a necessary step to take on medical grounds, this creates challenges for the social connection of residents with the communal facilities and services which are distinctive to the retirement community model, which is the main reason they moved in there. Many ARCO members have been quite innovative and creative in the way that they've responded to the COVID-19 crisis, though. They've come up with innovative ways of connecting which do not involve close contact. Another one of our members, Anka Hanover, which is one of our founding members, they run more than 100 care homes and retirement communities across the country, pioneered a Be Kind to One Another initiative as the COVID crisis was emerging in the UK. They asked people to send letters, pictures, videos and poems to their residents, offering an easy-to-use online tool for people to find the address of their local care home or retirement community. Within a matter of days, this had encouraged people of all ages to reach out to residents and to share messages of hope and positivity. This included Year 5 pupils at Park Junior School in Northampton, who broadcast their uplifting messages on BBC Radio to residents at the local Bilton Court care home. A number of our members have also used technology effectively to build stronger connections between residents during the time of physical separation. The Extra Care Charitable Trust, which operates retirement communities in the Midlands and south of England, has created an Extra Life online programme, a virtual village on Facebook through which residents can find exercises, activities, health advice, and other ways of staying connected during the outbreak. Inspired Villages, another one of our members who operates 7 retirement communities across the country, have set up a Facebook group called the Virtual Village. This acts as an online hub through which updates are shared, including indoor exercise classes, recipes, puzzles, nostalgia, jokes, and gardening tips. People are encouraged to share the page with friends, families, loved ones, and anyone they think would benefit, helping residents at inspired communities to stay connected with the wider world. As well as initiatives set up by our members to reduce social isolation for their own residents during the COVID-19 outbreak, they have led the way in sharing best practice and raising awareness of the importance of social connection during the period. St Monica's Trust organised the first ever National Intergenerational Week between this 22nd of March and the 29th of March, drawing on their experience of bringing young and old together, which they developed in the past through their participation in Channel 4's Old People's Home for 4-year-olds. Whilst this week it's initially been intended to celebrate ways of fostering connection through face-to-face contact, St Monica's Trust adapted to the situation and shared creative methods to build intergenerational bonds whilst staying physically separated. They also created a section on their website to draw attention to successful intergenerational projects run by organisations such as the Cares Family and Good Gym, for others to draw inspiration from. St Monica's work has been important in creating a stronger narrative and message around intergenerational connection and its role in tackling social isolation during the COVID-19 outbreak. While we've seen an increasing emphasis on technology's role in enabling social connection in recent months, for instance through FaceTime devices like Skype and Zoom and social media platforms such as Facebook, some barriers have remained in using technology as a means to reduce social isolation amongst older people. Whilst our members' retirement communities all provide free Wi-Fi and see many of their residents making active use of this, recent research has shown that across the UK, close to half of over 75s don't use the internet. The reasons for non-use require further research, but one study found that a perceived lack of need is the main reason. Whilst this should in no way stop us celebrating and expanding the technological tools to connect older people, it should prompt us to ensure that there are both online and offline means of social connection for older people, particularly as we potentially head back into a second wave of the virus. Our members have showcased a variety of different ways to reduce social isolation amongst older residents, providing tools both for those who regularly use the internet and those who prefer other forms of communication. ARCO Hanover's Be Kind to One Another initiative has encouraged offline letters and pictures, as well as the ones I mentioned earlier. Likewise, the St Monica's Trust Intergenerational Week also explored ways of being able to make sure that those residents who did not have access to the internet were included. In addition to the specific challenges presented to retirement communities during the COVID-19 outbreak, a broader challenge for our sector's ability to reduce social isolation of this period has been the current lack of retirement communities provision in the UK. And that's obviously something which we as a sector have been working very hard to try and address. So I think overall, to conclude sort of the section of talking about the impact our members have had and the way they've managed, I would say that they have adapted incredibly well, shown a huge level of innovation, and really focused on the needs of their residents and put them first. And that has been the same approach which we as a team at ARCO have had to try and adopt as a membership body as well. Just as our members put their residents first, we put our members first. And it has been challenging for us. As others have mentioned, we're a relatively small team, normally located in one office in Tooting. I think only a handful of us have been in there at all since March. But we have created ways of both staying connected as a team ourselves through both weekly team meetings and also weekly social events. So I think we've been part of the guilty wave of quizzes that spilled over the country. But again, it's just been a way of trying to keep that connection going. We've also been organising weekly calls with our members during the whole of the COVID crisis to keep them informed about the latest developments on government regulation as an ever-changing picture, and to help share best practice throughout the sector. During the time that's been covered by the crisis, we had planned our annual conference, which often has 400 to 600 people meeting in one place in London, which has obviously been impossible. We made the decision to replace that by an online digital season of events, which spans most of June and July. We were also really encouraged by the uptake there. So we had many times the normal number of people participating. And as well as those who were able to watch at the time, we were also able to record these events, which provide high quality content, which can be available in the future as well. So I'm really encouraged by how we have adapted as a sector. It has obviously presented some challenges to us in terms of the profile our sector had been hoping for in terms of physical events, but I'm also encouraged by the creativity that has been shown. Just a final plug, if I may. The most important work has been the creativity and the compassion that's been shown on the front line by our members, staff, and by our members' residents, and that's why we chose to honour their efforts. And there was a series of accolades that we gave out about a month back, recognising particular individuals who've made huge efforts on the front line. And I think I think that's particularly important to remember, that that's where the most important social connection is going on. We can do all we can to try and create these systems which make it as easy as possible to try and overcome the barriers, but it really takes those individual efforts, the individual desire to keep social connection going and to find ways of showing how important it continues to be. And I think that's our big learning from this, that whilst everyone understood social connection was important to the retirement community setting before, I think it's become really clear to us that just how much weight our residents are prepared to put on that, and how much they are themselves prepared to make the lead on it, to take the lead on it, and that's what's been hugely encouraging for us as a sector. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gareth. That's really interesting, and you know, we know how difficult a time it's been, particularly for your organisation and your members during the pandemic. So it's great to hear about all the things you're doing and continue to do and planning to do as we continue to experience the difficulties currently. So I thought I would then give some thoughts from our perspective on the question, and then we can move to some questions from the audience after that. So just to introduce myself, I'm Mike Turner. I'm an executive director of Ian Williams, and Ian Williams are one of the UK's largest maintenance providers operating within the social housing, education and commercial property sectors. And we deliver across England and Wales responsive repairs, cyclical maintenance and planned improvement projects by our directly employed teams. Nick mentioned the impact of culture and values, and that was something that I wanted to talk about as well, actually, because you know, our strategy is founded upon the principle that if we look after our employees, and they'll look after our customers, and more succinctly put, to be a company loved by its employees and customers. And as a housing maintenance provider and large employer, the impact of the pandemic, of course, has been very profound. Prior to the pandemic, we'd spent a considerable amount of time and effort working with our employees to create a culture needed to deliver our strategy. So when the pandemic began, our employees trusted us with respect to the actions we then took. And trust, as we know, is very important when you're experiencing rapid change. Of course, we are more reliant upon technology now as we are working remotely. However, again, the switch was fairly seamless and we didn't experience any significant disruption. And the impact that this had on our culture has also not been significant either. So bringing up the point again that Nick mentioned about culture and values. You would have expected also our responsive repairs national call centre in Birmingham to have experienced teething issues as our team moved to working from home. But again, this didn't happen. The only problem we did experience, that I'm sure others did as well, was sourcing laptops for those that didn't have one. But again, this was a short-lived issue. Flexible and remote working, I think, is here to stay. So we plan to further invest in technology in the future to take advantage of the many benefits that digitization and communications technology can provide. This brings me to the very important issue of communication during the pandemic, which again, I think Shelagh talked about. During the period, we formally communicated to everyone in the business, including those furloughed, on a weekly basis, providing updates on what was happening and providing advice and guidance as the ever-changing situation unfolded. And at the start, we took the decision to reduce our service level to that of emergency or urgent repairs, and furloughed the majority of our employees, ensuring that their pay was topped up to 80%. If they were below the government threshold. It's interesting to note that team communication remained at a fairly constant level, but leadership team communication directly with individual employees considerably increased. And we also found that customer communication increased as well. So, you know, Nick was talking about, you know, the conversations that you were having with your service providers. We found this exactly the same thing, that communication with our customers through MS Teams and Zoom, and the quality of those communication, the immediacy of it was also really good, and it leads you to reflect on, you know, traveling 4 hours for a 30-minute meeting may not be a very good idea, really, and there are probably much more productive and efficient ways of managing communication going forward. Our leadership team, we've increased the frequency of our meetings, and we have a remote catch-up every Friday, wherever we happen to be. And this has also been very beneficial in ensuring that we share information regularly and together. We have less one-to-ones, it's more a group conversation about what we're doing. And therefore collective decision-making has improved. And again, very important when events are moving quickly, and being able to respond to that in the right way. Returning to our employees, we began an employee opinion survey before the pandemic, and then we halted it, but we had the results, and then we decided more recently to complete another one. Now, as virtually all of our employees have returned to work from furlough. And the results have been very interesting. The Employee Net Promoter Score, or NPS, has significantly increased. It was at +17, it's now increased to +33 during the period of the pandemic. For those not familiar with the NPS, it's in effect the response to the question, would you recommend Ian Williams as an employer to your family or a friend? So in summary, although the pandemic has been an enormous challenge for Ian Williams, we've managed to ensure that our strategy of looking after our people has not only been maintained, but it's been enhanced. And this, we think, will ensure we continue to satisfy our customers and grow profitably as a consequence. And that means that we'll be able to provide a sustainable future for everyone. So that's kind of where we are. Now, I've got some questions for you. I'm just looking at the screen to pick out. So there was a question. Yeah, Gareth, you used the words compassion and creativity. And the question is, are these attributes that the panel think will continue, or will we revert to type? So I don't know whether anyone's got a particular view on that.
Shall I lead off on that one?
Yes, yes, it's good.
I think we'd like to believe that those attributes were always there, and there's definitely been an awful lot I could talk you through. Probably I've gone on at great length already about the great compassion and creativity that our members, staff, and residents have shown even before the crisis. But I think it's been a revelation just how much that has stepped up, and I think I would be surprised if it were to go away. I think people are likely to keep building on this and learn from what's worked well, and probably to keep doing that. And there will be some other ways of showing compassion, or some things which they miss doing, which they'll bring back. But absolutely, I think everyone will be really heartened to know just how important they all are to each other, and that people are prepared to go above and beyond to show that to each other.
Mm. I don't know whether anyone else has a view on that. No.
Well, just to say, really, it's just in terms of building the team. And Mike, you mentioned about your leadership teams and the frequency, and the fact that you always honour your regular Fridays wherever you are. I think it's just that. It's that courtesy towards colleagues, that whether you're junior or senior. I think that's come out, and I would like to work and encourage everybody to continue with that.
Yeah. Nick, you talked about some finding it difficult to work at home, and I didn't know how you feel that managing communication with those that are particularly struggling with working from home, how you're tackling that issue.
Yeah.
Well, that is a big challenge. I mean, I would say the majority of staff aren't struggling. There's a small number of people, generally younger or not in perhaps such good physical home environment, i.e. lack of space. And I think really what we're looking at the moment was how they could meet in a safe way, in a way that was able to give them the sort of social needs that they have as people. But of course, the headlines today is that you're not going to be allowed to meet more than 6 people in any one time. And I'm grappling with the good old health and safety duty of care of the health of our colleagues, so physical health, as compared to their mental health, of the need to get together. So we're looking longer term. We're going to be downsizing our office portfolio significantly. I think I already mentioned we've done a lot of work on that, and the offices that we end up keeping won't be traditional offices. They will just be breakout areas, collaboration space. So it won't look like an office that I left in March. It'll be very, very different. And we're looking to also because we, you know, I mentioned in my talk that we've made significant savings as regards room bookings, mileage, etc. We're looking to put some of that money back into budgets so that if people want to meet in a safe venue with some colleagues and it's safe to do so, then you know they've got a budget to pay for refreshments or room hire or whatever. And of course the market is catching us up. I've never been to a Brewdog in my life, but I'm told by colleagues that Brewdog now will let you book workspace as long as you buy a coffee or cake or whatever. And if you're there all day, apparently they will give you one free beer at the end of the day to encourage you to stay afterwards. So I'm not suggesting that I want my colleagues to go into a pub, but the point I'm making is, you know, there's now a big gap in the market, and there'd be, you know, people like Pret a Manger may either, you know, evolve or go out of business. But there'd be other businesses coming along that will meet now the new need for collaboration space, good Wi-Fi, etc.
Yeah, it's fascinating how businesses are re-engineering themselves, isn't it? And being creative. Creative innovation it's been amazing, I think, over this period. And so we've got a couple more questions. One question maybe to ask each of the panel, and then I'll give my view, is what do you think is the one thing that you've learned from the pandemic which will make your organisation better? So can I ask you perhaps, Shelagh, first, if you've got your view? Have you got a view?
Well, I think the one thing actually is to embrace the technology. It's been a lifesaver for organisations like ours, and people, particularly in my generation, are coming to it a little reluctantly. I think that's got to change. So invest more in finding out about the technology, make it a mental challenge to yourself, and embrace it.
Great.
So
and
one point.
That's great. And Gareth, do you have a view?
Yeah, I think for us, I'd echo that sentiment. I think I'd also say it's made us think a bit more strategically about what face-to-face meetings are for. And I think there is still a place for them. There's still a place for face-to-face events, you know, in terms of, as you mentioned before, making new contacts and being able to speak to people afterwards. But it's also opened our eyes to a lot more opportunities, which we think can help to broaden the sort of the geographic inclusion in our sector. I know there's many people who've been able to get far more involved now, who actually getting down to London has been most of a day out of the office and back. So actually, I think the way in which we think about events has changed, and I think that's not going to go back.
And Nick, finally, do you have a?
Yeah, I mean, Shelagh mentioned technology, and I think it's actually thinking differently. So at Stonewater, we had invested a lot in video conferencing. So up until March, we all went into the office to video conference. It never entered our mind that you could sit at home and video conference, which is, sounds really stupid now, doesn't it? You know, I drove an hour to go on the video conference, which now, I could just walk into a room and video conference. So we had the facility there. We used it in a traditional way. And, you know, people always say you've got to think differently. And it actually gives you a real headache when you try and think differently. And, you know, the pandemic made us make that leap. And I think if we hadn't had the pandemic, we would probably be in London today. Or if we were doing it virtually and we were in very avant-garde, I'd be sat in our Reading office or something, video room, because it wouldn't have occurred to me that I could do it from home.
Yeah.
So actually thinking differently.
And my thought is that change isn't as hard as you think it is. We've been forced to change. There were no reasons not to. We couldn't find reasons not to change. We had to change. And in most situations, the reasons not to change sometimes sort of paralyze us. They stop us, they slow us down. We find all sorts of reasons not to do something, and it just becomes very difficult, expensive, time consuming. So change is probably not as difficult as we all think it is. You know, when we put our minds to it, it can be achieved pretty quickly.
Can I just say, Mike, the burning bridge helps?
Yeah, it does. it makes you go quick. Yeah, yeah, it does. But we've managed to achieve what we've all achieved today. And the final question, which is probably the answer to the question that we're all talking about, is: has social distancing brought us closer together? So it's kind of a yes or no answer to this one. Yeah. If there's not a maybe option. So Nick, do you have is it a yes or a no?
An emphatic yes.
And Sheila?
Oh, absolutely. It's brought me closer, not only to the people I know, but to the people I don't know.
Thank you. And Gareth, how about you?
I think it's a caveated yes. Yes, the desire is there. Yes, there's been a lot of positive stuff, but let's not forget it is still difficult for some people. We need to try and not leave them behind too.
Okay, and I'm absolutely a yes as well, very definitely. So as there's a sort of a no maybe option, we're a 4-0 to the yeses, which is great. So thank you very much. And I hope you have enjoyed the discussion today. And I especially want to thank our speakers, Nick, Sheila and Gareth, for sharing their views. And also want to thank Amy, who's been working behind the scenes with the technology to support the discussion that we've had today. The event is being recorded and will be available shortly on social media and on our website too. So links will be sent out to that. So thank you again for everyone joining us for the event today. And of course, please keep safe and well. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you.